and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Ji-yoon in Seoul. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. Korea's trade surplus with the U.S. drops in the first 4 months of this year amid growing trade protectionism from the Trump administration. More companies are transitioning their irregular workers into permanent posts amid the Moon Jae-in administration's drive to increase quality jobs. These stories and more coming right up. Korea's trade surplus with the United States has slimmed down considerably during the first 4 months of this year, despite America's imports having grown during that time. Our Oh Soo-young starts us off.
Korea's trade surplus with the United States has seen a dramatic cut so far this year. Figures from the US Department of Commerce show that even though America's overall imports rose by 7% from January to April, shipments coming from Korea fell 2.1% to $23 billion. And the other way around, US exports to Korea rose by more than 23%, knocking down Korea's surplus to $7.8 billion. That's a drop of nearly 31%. Countries like Japan, Germany and India also saw their surpluses shrink, while China, Ireland and Canada saw a substantial boost. Reducing America's trade deficit was one of President Donald Trump's biggest campaign promises, and Korea is one trading partner that's been expecting a backlash against its exports, possibly even the scrapping of its bilateral FTA with Washington. Korea's trade ministry said on Wednesday that it will set up a cooperative body that will bring together public and private efforts to monitor and respond to possible trade actions, as well as roll out measures for small and medium-sized businesses to minimize the impact of potential friction with the US.
We should diversify our exports of intermediate goods and machinery to fast-growing emerging markets like Vietnam, as well as increase shipments of consumer products that we have strengths in, like cosmetics and medical products.
Down the line, however, a Korean think tank said last week that if Washington decides to scrap the trade pact with Seoul, it would likely hurt the US more than Korea. Without the FTA, it said, US shipments to Korea would be subject to a minimum of 4% in duties, while Korean businesses would only pay 1.6%. The think tank's simulation in 2015 found Korea would lose $1.3 billion in exports and the US $1.5 billion, which would still hand Korea a positive balance of trade. Oh Soo-young, Business Daily.
With new cases of avian influenza confirmed this week, the Korean government is trying to quickly get a grip on the situation. It has banned the transport of all live poultry for 24 hours and is going to buy up all poultry birds from small farms at risk of an outbreak and cull them. Our Kim Mo-kyun reports.
As of Wednesday, officials have confirmed cases of the highly pathogenic H5N8 bird flu virus at a total of 5 farms in Jeju, Gijang, Paju, and Gunsan. The first case was confirmed last Friday at a farm in Jeju, which tested positive after buying chickens from a farm in Gunsan, Jeollabuk-do province a week earlier. Following those reports, the Korean government issued a 24-hour nationwide ban on the transportation of live poultry, which took effect at midnight on Tuesday. The authorities also dispatched investigators and quarantine officers to the hardest-hit areas and established a disaster management headquarters in each local government. The Agriculture Ministry is also pushing ahead with a program to buy and cull all chickens and ducks from small-sized farms that are put on the watch list. The ministry announced on Wednesday that more than 170,000 chickens and ducks have been culled at 66 farms nationwide since last week. The AI alert is now at its highest level for the second time since last November. Kim Mo-kyun, Business Daily.
And moving on to markets, to give us a brief picture of this week's stock market action, we have our Business Daily's markets contributor, Choi Jin-seok, joining us on the phone today. Hello, Jin-seok.
Hello, June.
All right, so how are things looking in today's session? Global markets closed with a sluggish picture just ahead of major market events later this week.
It was still a mixed picture throughout the Korean equity market. The Kospi failed to find its clear direction again, closing at 2360.14, down 0.36% compared to the previous session, while the Kosdaq rose for 6 consecutive sessions, closing at 666, up 0.6%. The Kospi market opened the session with a downtick, falling to as low as 23.56 in early hours. The market erased most of its losses, and the index was mostly flat during late hours. Foreigners and retail investors bought shares on the Kospi, but institutions who sold shares for 3 consecutive sessions dragged down the entire index. Just ahead of major market events, including the UK general election and the testimony of former FBI Director James Comey, global markets closed with a sluggish picture overnight, and this spooked investors in the Korean market as well. The futures and options expiration date tomorrow also affected sentiment. Meanwhile, the Kosdaq continued to outperform the Kospi, rising for 6 consecutive sessions as foreigners bought shares.
Now, as you just said, the Kosdaq has recently been outperforming the Kospi, and of course, foreign investors have been concentrating on these small to mid-cap stocks.
That's right. Foreign investors purchased a net 530 billion Korean won, or $474 million worth of stocks on the Kosdaq market in May, the most in 13 years, Korea Exchange said today. The amount offshore investors bought was the 3rd highest ever as well, after the 1.01 trillion Korean won tailed in February of 2000 and 723.4 billion Korean won in April of 2004. Experts attribute the surge to investors moving to buy the undervalued Kosdaq market from the benchmark Kospi, which has risen sharply in recent months amid improving corporate earnings and resilient exports.
Then what are the projections for the Kosdaq market in the near term?
At least in the near term, most experts expect further gains in the Kosdaq market. First, the market still seems to be undervalued compared to the Kospi market. Due to a sharp rally in 2015, the prices of Kosdaq stocks were once almost 40% overvalued compared to large-cap stocks. Experts say the prices already hit a certain level before the 2015 rally, meaning Kosdaq stocks have become much cheaper. One of the positives about the recent rally is that tech shares on the Kosdaq market have led the way, attracting foreign investors to the market. Despite this rosy picture, though, experts say it's premature to say the Kosdaq might become the primary option among investors over the Kospi market. Other than the fact that the Kosdaq is undervalued, there doesn't appear to be enough factors to lift the Kosdaq further. The recent buying spree has largely been concentrated on only a few individual companies listed on the Kosdaq as well. Therefore, it will be important to see if the Kosdaq index surpasses its resistance level of 680 before getting overly optimistic about the market. This has been Choi Jin-seok for Business Daily.
Finance Minister nominee Kim Dong-yeon has emphasized the role of taxes in improving income inequality. During his confirmation hearing today, Kim, who will also act as Deputy Prime Minister once confirmed, said that tax policies still fall short when it comes to improving wealth disparity in Korea. He noted tax evasion and other structural issues that allow the rich to pass on their wealth need to be addressed. Kim is also considering setting up a task force specifically looking at ways to enhance fairness and equality in the economy. On President Moon Jae-in's drive for income-driven growth, the nominee said job creation is an important factor, but structural reforms and improving productivity are also key. Wage growth here in Korea has struggled to keep up with the pace of expansion in the overall economy for the past 5 years. According to data from the Finance Ministry, real monthly wages at companies that employ 5 or more full-time workers grew at an average rate of 2.46%, while the country's real GDP expanded by 2.8%. The chasm deepens over a 15-year frame. While the economy grew more than 4% from the year 2000 to 2016, paychecks only went up 2.5%. Experts say businesses need to distribute their earnings more evenly to ensure wages keep up with inflation. As seen in the government's $10 billion supplementary budget proposal for job creation, a lot of changes are expected in the country's employment market. And the private sector, companies are already looking to convert their irregular workers into regular positions, providing better pay, more security, and added benefits. For more on this, our Kim Ji-yeon joins us in the studio today. Hi, Ji-yeon.
Hello, Ji-yeon.
All right, so it looks like this would be a major boost to the government's job creation initiative.
That's right. A lot of local experts say that encouraging the private sector to increase the number of quality jobs is crucial in realizing the Moon Jae-in administration's vision to achieve income-driven growth. And that essentially means looking to improve consumption and investment by bolstering household incomes and welfare. So this move by conglomerates falls in line with the government's drive, and I was able to meet a worker who will be benefiting from this. Take a look.
38-year-old Chung Sun-woo has been working as an internet installer for one of the country's largest wireless broadband companies for the past 13 years. He pays visits to private homes up to 4 times a day to help hook up TVs or fix problems with people's internet connection, which sometimes requires him to go up telephone poles to mend cables. Although things occasionally get tough, Chung says he has nothing to complain about. He'll soon be transitioning to a position at SK Broadband instead of working for a subcontractor, and it's what motivates him to work harder than before.
My wife is particularly happy about it. She can now proudly tell her friends what I do for a living. It's a major plus that I'll be working as a regular employee of a big conglomerate, on top of the added pay and benefits I'll be able to receive.
Chung is one of the 5,200 workers SK Broadband will be newly hiring next month. The company is setting aside more than $41 million to create a holding company to take on workers from more than 100 of its subcontracting companies. The move is part of SK Broadband's effort to increase its competitiveness in the services and security sector to better prepare for the era of the Internet of Things. Other companies, mainly in the electronics sector, have also announced similar plans to transition irregular workers employed by subcontractors to regular positions for similar reasons. This move on the surface is a welcome decision, but some say the companies may be jumping on the bandwagon for reasons that are not entirely altruistic. Some conglomerates are suspected of caving in to mounting pressures from the government, which warned earlier this month it may impose fines on those employing a large number of irregular workers.
So how about other businesses? I mean, I imagine there's been a lot of opposition from the mounting pressure from the government. So what's the response has been like?
Well, the Korean Employers Federation claims that the controversy surrounding irregular workers is based on a misconception that all irregular workers are working under poor conditions with less pay, which the Federation says is not the case. In its new book due to be published later this month, the KEF claims that more than 53% of all irregular workers in 2016 say they prefer for irregular positions due to their preference, either for specific working hours or shorter working hours due to childcare and etc., and freelancers who say they can receive higher pay since they're not bound to one company. And the Federation also emphasizes that pressuring employers to convert all workers to permanent positions can cause harm in that it will lead to an increase in labor costs, which will limit the total number of workers companies could hire and ultimately having the reverse effect.
So where does Korea stand in the number of irregular workers over permanent regular workers compared to other countries?
Well, that's $1 million question with no definite answer because there are different stats supporting the claims by business circles, the government, and labor groups, mainly due to their different take on who should be considered an irregular worker. For instance, the Employers Federation says the proportion of irregular workers in the entire workforce stands at around 15%, not far from the OECD average of around 11.5%. And the state-run Statistics Korea, on the other hand, says the proportion is at around 33%, while data by the Korea Labor and Society Institute show that nearly 45% or more workers hold irregular positions. And business circles have the tendency to only consider part-time and temporary workers as irregular workers, the same standards applied by the OECD. And the government defines irregular workers primarily based on an agreement among labor, management, and government in 2002, which includes temporary workers, part-timers, and dispatch workers who have contracts with one company but are dispatched to work elsewhere. And meanwhile, labor unions on top of all this include workers with unlimited contracts who have no end date for their services and labor, but nonetheless are categorized as regular workers.
So it looks like a lot is up for debate. So how do we go about resolving all this?
Well, one way is rather than just forcing companies to comply to one norm, it may be better to tackle the issues by addressing some of the reasons why companies prefer to hire regular workers in the first place. For instance, the government could consider relaxing current labor laws that make it difficult for employers to fire their employees without stating just cause. And another way is to change the current wage and employee promotion system for higher level positions, which customarily take into account seniority rather than performance. Also, rather than just imposing penalties, it may help to provide incentives, such as tax cuts to firms that hire more regular workers instead of irregular workers.
So definitely looks like it's a long road ahead before we all see this happening, right? Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
A local court has ruled against more than 40 Koreans who sued Volkswagen Korea for infringing on their right to health by rigging emissions data. Officials say the Seoul Central District Court decided there was insufficient evidence to corroborate the plaintiff's claim that the cars caused more air pollution and therefore affected their health than other vehicles on the road. The plaintiffs had been demanding slightly over $260 each in damages. Smoking is expected to kill more than 8 million people annually by 2030. In its latest report, the World Health Organization also estimated the number of smokers around the world will grow to 1.5 billion people by 2025. Between 2000 and 2010, the number of smokers dropped slightly to around 1.1 billion, but the WHO says it has shown an upward trend since. The projected uptick is attributed to the rising number of smokers in low and middle income countries. Now, a recent study reveals that Korean fathers tend to be so busy at work that 8 out of 10 dads take part in 0 school activities. Our Elliot Kim looks into the reasons why and how companies hope to avoid this in the future.
Recently, large companies like CJ and Lotte have been attempting to improve work environments so that employees can have a healthier work-life balance. They've started by increasing time off for parents. Findings by the Child Care Benefit Research Center show that while 93% of mothers attend school entrance ceremonies, only 17% of fathers attend. Even when counting other school gatherings like sporting events, the percentage of fathers present at a minimum of one event rises to only 20%. With dual-income families growing, parents are finding it increasingly difficult to create a balance between work and childcare. Companies are looking to improve corporate cultures to benefit the lives of both parents and children. CJ Group recently introduced a new parental leave system that allows parents to take up to 1 month off around the time their children enter elementary school. This is in addition to increasing paternity leave for fathers from 3 days paid and 2 days unpaid to 2 weeks of paid leave. Lotte Group's new mandatory paternity leave, the first of its kind amongst large domestic corporations, takes things to a new level. Starting in January, male employees have been required to take 1 month off following childbirth. More specifically, Lotte Department Store introduced shortened hours for pregnant employees, time off for the start of school, and optional leave of absence starting 100 days prior to a child's college entrance exams. These policies are believed not to just benefit parents, but companies as well.
The current fourth industrial revolution isn't about technology or devices, but rather diversity and open thinking centered on humanism. Companies are readying themselves for better diversity by adopting and implementing policies for gender equality.
Employees are welcoming the expanding efforts large corporations are putting towards providing more flexible work environments and increased employee welfare. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
Korea's agricultural sector has suffered a continued downturn in recent years, and lately a centenary or sixth-level industry has emerged as a vision for the future of farming that could revive the rural economy. So what are centenary industries and what kind of economic benefit could they deliver? Let's find out.
This is Sammoru Farm in Paju, Gyeonggi-do Province, which is about an hour-and-a-half drive from Seoul. About a dozen of foreign tourists make an early morning visit to the farm for a winery tour. The farm started to grow moru, or wild grapes, in the mid-1970s. Since 2009, it has organized a range of interesting tour programs to find a market for grape products, such as moru wine.
Imported farm products were so cheap that we couldn't compete with them. So we decided to attract consumers to our farm. We developed different tour programs and built facilities where these programs could take place.
A winery tour features a 73-meter-long wine tunnel, an underground cellar where wine bottles are stored. Visitors can take part in different activities, including sampling wines made from grapes grown on the farm. One of the most popular programs is moru jam making. Thanks to the popularity of tour programs, the farm's annual revenues reach nearly $200 million.
In Singapore, we have very little opportunity to go to the farm. Here, I think, is a good experience for us to look around, also to see how the wine is made. All right. The experience is wonderful.
What's interesting is that international visitors outnumber domestic ones. Of the 85,000 visitors in 2016, 60,000 were foreigners.
One day, I saw buses lining up in front of Imjingak, a tourist site nearby. The buses were full of foreign tourists. To cater to foreign visitors, we fixed restrooms and other facilities and added English signs for their convenience.
Engaged in farming grapes, manufacturing of grape products, and tour programs, Sammoru Farm is a prime example of a centenary industry. Centenary industries combine the primary industries of agriculture and fisheries, secondary industries of manufacturing and processing, and tertiary industries of tourism and retail. The convergence of the three sectors of the economy is believed to create added value.
When the natural environment of a given area is combined with the experience of how the area has used its agricultural resources, you will be able to understand the importance of farm products and agriculture, as well as added value. It can also help boost the rural economy.
Another successful example of centenary industry is the Pig Museum, located in Icheon, Gyeonggi-do Province. Founded in 2011, the museum is involved in the centenary industry with pig farming.
I wanted to challenge people's preconception about pigs being dirty. I also wanted to share everything about pigs.
The museum features a display of pig characters from 22 countries around the world. Visitors can also watch live pig performances and visit a breeding farm to get a close look at pigs. In this class, visitors learn that one pig can produce about 185 types of food products before making one of them pork sausages.
They showed how to make ham. It seemed like a healthy food, so I was relieved.
The Pig Museum has mixed the primary industries of raising and breeding of pigs, secondary industries of sausage manufacturing, and tertiary industries of pig performance and feeding to create added value. It plans to open a farmer's market selling local produce and build another pig museum.
We plan to collaborate with animal-assisted therapists and gardening therapists.
Centenary industries are still at a nascent stage. Experts say in order to take them to the next level, rural communities should build their brand based on their own unique identity.
The convergence of competitive resources and high-performing individuals from different fields will continue to create added value for rural communities.
With the number of people turning to farming increasing more than tenfold for the past 4 years, interest in centenary industries is higher than ever. We hope the government's strong support and creative business models for centenary industries can offer a breakthrough for struggling rural communities.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.